So we're on to our final take with Senela, obviously, who was telling us about this wonderful organization that she's put together, and she'll tell us exactly how you can look up her organization if you are one of those women who really feels, I need to be empowered, I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. That's all happening, and if you're just joining us, better late than never. This is Game Changers. This is the edition where we're having a celebration of International Women's Day, but we're stretching it through a month, and then we have surprises coming up for you where we're going to give you a continuity of what you can do to be the best version of yourself, just as drawn from the wonderful words of Seni. So Seni, I'm just going to my last question for you. This is on a different level of your attitudes and your attributes and all. But before I get to the attitudes and attributes, apart from the corporate runaround, the kids, when it comes to you as a person, what are those things that you really like to do, the little things you like to treat yourself to, kind of like your favorites, your things to do? What are those?
Oh, wow, that's a huge explosive question, Jill.
I know, it's always the case.
I love this. You know what? I love music. I think some viewers might already know that. So I write music. And
in fact, you've released a song as well, remember?
Yes.
On YouTube. I still have that. I still have that on YouTube.
I love music and I write music and I'm very involved with the production as well. I play the guitar, I play the keyboards, I sing, and also I love drawing, I paint. Really, okay, I need to correct, I stand corrected. I don't paint, I sketch. So I do figure drawing. And I remember sketching this massive life-size sketch of Tarzan and Jane in my room when I was just a little over 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And also, I love writing. I love writing so much. Yeah.
Writing is actually very therapeutic, even in terms of relieving your stress and, taking out emotions that you really don't know how to challenge. The best way is put it out in a notebook, put it out in a diary. This is actually a thought process. Okay, so from stemming onto your personal likes, I'm going to stem into a couple of questions that I see, and I guess there are pros and cons to both sides of what I'm going to bring out. First of all, we spoke about women self-doubting, self-judging. The other thing is the complete opposite of it, the feminist theory, as we call it. The extreme feminism, I don't think is something you can agree with, because sometimes feminists are the type that would say, I can stand on my own, I don't need a man to do this. But, and then they say, men are like this, men are like this, and they kind of degrade to that level. But, well, in my case, I wouldn't agree with that, and I don't think you would either, because we've got good husbands, good fathers, and I think they inculcate so much good. When it comes to that point of view, what would your response be to someone who's a feminist? This is extreme, I know, but how would you challenge that?
I think the textbook definition of feminism is about looking at women's rights. And then UN comes out with the perspective of gender mainstreaming, and gender mainstreaming is all about looking at what implications actions have on both men and women equally. So from that lens, I am an equalist. I'm not only for women, I'm also for men. You know why? Because I'm a lot about sustainability. Mm-hmm. From strategy to whatever thing we put out. Is it sustainable? End of the day. That's the true question. To make a community sustainable, you need both genders. And I think success is gender blind. I think families ought to be gender blind. Unfortunately, communities and patriarchal societies, especially like South Asia, what I'm seeing is that a lot of these issues are sort of hammering down these stereotypes. So if you're a woman, you're like this. If you're a man, you're like this. And if you are that stereotype woman, you sort of, take on that role and you're like, yes, I'm this and that. And really, in my view and my worldview, I believe, in fact, somebody told me, I'm a humanist. I had this girl come and tell me at this women's conference, oh, Sunil, I'm not a feminist, I'm not an equalist, I'm a humanist. That tells me that people are desperate to find some sort of definition that is a little bit more harmonious, a little bit more inclusive, which is more sustainable. And I think the typical sort of a modern contemporary feminist point of view is also creating a sense of division between genders. Then there comes, strategies of having a meritocratic organization versus the quotas, and people are trying to streamline all these concepts. But end of the day, I think it's a human quality to understand that a community cannot survive with a homogeneous group.
That's true.
It has to be collective and it has to be sustainable. And the only way for sustainability is using an inclusive approach, a merit-driven approach as well as an inclusive approach. So I think those two things, the concept of merit and the concept of inclusiveness, the minute societies and organizations and leadership teams can find the balance and integration between these two concepts, that is when you create this whole sustainable situation and outcome. Yeah.
Okay, so Seri, a lot of good context put there. Getting on to, since we talk about women empowerment, we're on this journey, but like you said, looking at it outside the silo and the individual and taking it as that support system that we call, what is your key advice to the woman in the marriage? And I'm not saying to be empowered or stand strong, but to build that harmony, that unity, to build that strength in the marriage, which is probably even outside the traditional norms of the woman's place is cook, clean, raise the children, and the man's place is fend for the family and pay the bills. Now it's changed, as we can see the ecosystem. Both parents are working, all of that. But as a marriage, as the you and the him, which is where it started off, what's your advice to people who are young married couples or people who are in that same streamline? What's your advice to them?
I think personally, reflecting even on my journey, one of the key things I could tell a married woman or a woman who has who's to be married but who has a lot of career aspirations in life, like you said, goal-oriented, I think one of the key things I could tell them is you cannot do it alone. You need the support system. And women innately, we already come with qualities, these communal qualities where we can work with other people. We have the nurturing qualities. And like I may have sort of touched on before, it's not about competing with your husband or competing for career goals with your husband. I see that happening in modern couples as well. Oh, my husband is doing this, his paycheck is this amount, hence I'm empowered, I'm a feminist. No, it's really not about that. I think we need to really just embrace the diversity. I think the culture needs to stop stigmatizing women who work as well, because that stigma sort of comes behind closed doors into the marriage as well, because the minute the wife decides to work and have aspirations, it affects the sort of conversation that happens behind closed doors. So I think this whole thing is at different levels. But to the woman, what I can say is work together with your husband, work collectively. I think fostering communication is one of the most critical things you could ever do in your marriage. It's communication. That is the biggest things you can do. And another thing, the conversation about time management. Being a mother myself of a fairly young kid, she's just 6.5, and she brings a ton of homework. And kids nowadays, Joe, have so much more homework than when we were that age.
Yet to venture into that.
You know, it's a lot of work. But one of the things I keep telling myself is, as women, we have to get into the art of taking off one hat, the business hat, and putting on the hat of a mother. And you really need to get into this transition where you actually remove this hat and you assume the other hat. I love how Indira Noory did it, Pepsi chair. What Indira says is, you know, I may be the chair of a big company, of a big massive enterprise, but when I come home, I am the mother. And you know this famous story about how, you know, the spilt milk story, where her mother said, you know, you may be this person, but at home you're just the wife, you're just the mother. And I think there is a lot of value in that. If you look at it from a positive lens, what that means is, I think the universe has sort of given women a certain skill set, and really tapping into their femininity is not wrong. It is not a sign of weakness. I think in today's contemporary society, you know, the postmodern era, a lot of women think or we need to resemble men, or we need to dress like a man,
wear the pants,
or talk in a certain way. No, what we advocate at Women Empowered is about being your best version and really tapping into your femininity.
Yes.
And embracing that which your husband brings to it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So one of the key things is managing time. What I want to say on managing time is work-life balance. You will never get it 100%. If anybody says you will, it is 100% myth.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now. All we can do with time is manage it. And in order to manage it, the best advice I can give you is go back to your support system. Negotiate. You are in the business of negotiating and bargaining and buying time from your spouse, from your in-laws, from your siblings, going back into the support system and negotiating your time with them. You can never achieve it alone as a woman. That's number one. Number two is communication with your spouse, because your partner truly is going to be your partner in crime. You really need that support system. If it's not your partner, it could be your best friend. It could be just identify who are those people in your life. Are they could either be your energy vampires.
Yeah, I guess this is irrelevant whether you're married or you've chosen the single life, whichever it is. Your support system, right?
Your support system. And also I just want to put something out there that I think it was John Maxwell that says that you are the value of the 5 people you hang out with. Basically what he tried to stress is that be careful, watch out for your influence. Your circle of influence is very critical. As a married woman, as a woman with high aspirations and goals in life, who have you appointed as your unofficial circle of influence? That is another key thing to look into in the context of your question. And another key thing that I want to also mention, bring into this conversation is this. Personally, I'm very passionate about mentioning this, is that I believe you don't have to be rich to help the poor. Similarly, you don't have to be totally empowered, as it were, to empower others.
That's true. That's true.
Personally, I haven't got my life 100% sorted out. I don't think I'm the best mom out there. I don't advocate that I'm the best wife out there or the best leader out there. But the important thing is, if you have the human conscience, if you have that social enterprise outlook, if you're looking for a purpose that is beyond yourself, ultimately trying to live for something that you can fulfill your utmost purpose in your life, which we all have. Each of us have that. Are we ready? Are we open? Just align yourself with that and go into that, and really remember that yes, it is every person's, every woman's responsibility to work in the space of empowering other women. It is everybody's responsibility. It's not just for the leadership team of an organization. It's not just for the boardrooms to look at it at institutional level. It is everybody's responsibility. Be a woman who recruits fairly, but also be a woman who doesn't get intimidated by another woman's success. These are very important pain points that I want to bring out, because a lot of women I'm seeing, what I've identified, particularly, Joe, in our parts of the world, a lot of the women who have reached the top, they're fabulous, but there has been tremendous sacrifice that has gone into that. And I think there's a lot that a lot of younger generation can learn from that. But a trap that I also see in a lot of women who are still climbing is that they tend to get very territorial about their space.
Competitive. This is true.
Absolutely, very competitive. But again, sustainability and looking at collective solutions. So Women Empowered looks at layers to do with different layers of that work. And I just want to really just end my point by saying you don't need to be 100% empowered to empower others, and empowerment is something that starts from inside of you. I just want to really
that's a wonderful, very strong point. And on to my very final question. You know how you get a lot of people today, because it's actually now centered around women raising their voices, a call out to others, standing up for women. I know women do this for women, but correct me if I'm wrong, even in circles of friends, associates, known people, you know how they think that, okay, it's always a challenge against this male empowerment, right? It's the men have actually left us at the back of the room, so now we need to get to the front. But what I see is it's most women who bring other women down. We shout about women empowerment. We shout about, she's my sister from another mother. And you know, there's so many words that go in it. But the sad truth in it is, it's some women, like you said in your earlier point, that's why I wanted to bring that out, is that it's drawn by that jealousy, that territory. How do you think women, I know it's a very tough question, even on a psychological level it's a tough question, but how should women be able to challenge whatever their emotional interior feelings are to help other women? Because the idea of the empowerment is for us to put those little negates aside and actually push forward. And if you look at it, it's not the men who are making them feel like, okay, you're at the back seat. The women do this to their own kind. How do you see that, especially even if I was to leave Asia and the rest of the world, how do you see that in Sri Lanka?
As a normal personal social
level,
or
personal
corporate
social level.
Okay.
I mean, not even in a corporate level, on a personal level, on a social level. For someone who's, you know, bread, butter, brought up in Sri Lanka and has a lot of female circles, I'm sure you see this as much as I do.
Yes.
I mean, there's always the girl that walks into the room with a really nice dress, and instead of going, wow, she looks really great, they're like, oh my gosh, what does she think she's wearing? Does she think she's Giselle Bundchen or something like that? But that again is that very negated attitude. How would you say in Sri Lanka, in societies, how do we change that? What should we do to change that as women, as individuals?
All right, quite honestly, this sort of situation is not, I don't have one medicine for all, in other words. I think this is a sort of endemic which requires a different prescription for every case. Mm-hmm. So you need to customize your medication because people are very complex. And Joe, women
utterly complex.
Times that. And I'm proud to say that I'm very complex as well, but I think it's a good thing because women bring in that, you know, multifaceted, you know, I read an article, a research article, it was a leadership column that said women are very innovative because we're very communal and we can work very well, very effortlessly with diversified teams. So, I mean, we have all these pros and cons, and you're right about, you know, you see this cute little thing walk into the room, and then instead of going, oh, you know, she's so amazing,
really
and
beautiful.
Instead of celebrating her as our sister, why do women go, oh, you know? So that's
the put down element, right? I guess maybe nobody has a proper answer for that. I think that added to all the points you spoke about, being the best of yourself and all of that, I think that also matters. You know, this is like a part of, you want to be the best version of yourself, or you really want to stand up for women, I think you need to start with yourself, and you start from stopping discriminating, the judgment. Just because she's full of tattoos, that doesn't make her a bad person. Her tattoos are her story.
Absolutely.
Or just because she's decided to go with her hair in blue, and that is not something that is a social norm, she has a story behind that blue. That blue has a whole story to it. So I think that alone is an empowerment message that has to be given, right? Accept the person seated next to you for what they are and who they are, because they have their own story that has made them what they are.
And you know what? The more research I'm doing into empowerment and stereotypes in societies, especially in South Asia, is that what I'm advocating now is for women and men, for humans to get into their most authentic state of being. And there's nothing more sexier than the authentic brand of yourself. And going back to your question in terms of one of the things we're doing to celebrate women, Joe, is at my training sessions, we go through reflections, we go through Q&As, all of that. And one of the key things I do, even in my own in-house team, my staff, is from small focus groups to big audiences, I say, every time, say I'm doing a training and say a participant gives an answer, gives a feedback, immediately I say, you know what, I want you to celebrate that. I want you to give a round of applause. And I get everybody in the audience to clap each other. So you start inculcating this practice of celebrating each other instead of competing each other. And you know what was remarkable in my training programs, where I adopted this practice to address is exactly what you're saying, creating this culture of celebration instead of competitiveness, because out of celebration comes also motivation and productivity and team,
and I think that touches more of an emotional bound in you.
Absolutely. What I see is that, you know, even within the same team, I notice that some people who have the right answers, they're not celebrated within the same team. So that team goal, so this goes down to human nature as well. I think innately we're very territorial. You know, it's about us, but we need to break those stereotypes.
I think it's all in the mind, right?
You're absolutely right, Joe. We need to break those barriers down, and empowered people empower others. And from a leadership perspective, I'd also like to add that what if I told you that some of the best leaders are people who focused on it wasn't just at a transactional level of, oh, I'm the boss, I'm your leader, hence you have to do these duties. No, it's from the lens of, you know what, I respect as a leader that you might have certain qualities and viewpoints that I don't, even in spite of me being your leader. So really, even from a leadership perspective, it's about celebrating one another. It's not really about hammering down and I'm the ultimate ruler, I'm better than he or she. You know, so I think we need to really just start adopting these lenses. And it's a hard fix. It's a long-term journey. We're not going to achieve it overnight, because even when it comes to the corporate space, Joe, one of the biggest endemics you'll ever face is the endemic of bias, right? Even when it comes to meritocracy, in empowerment, people say, oh, promote women on merit, don't go for quotas, promote men on merit. Who really defines merit? What is a view on merit?
What is the measurement there?
What is the measurement of merit? So there again, it's about looking at inclusive strategies and celebrating diversity.
It's very holistic instead of just breaking it down.
Yes. So I'd just like to say that for those who are watching with us today and are curious how to contact me or engage with the work that we do at Women Empowered, and how you can be a part of it and also find empowerment for yourself or for your team, I invite you to visit our website, that is www.womenempowered.global. So come onto our website, and also we are on all social media. We're about currently 10 global partners strong, and I can connect you with them, and really it's about finding the transformation that is going to be sustainable for your growth and development.
Sunny, I have to say thank you so much for being here, sharing this moment. I know you and I can sit and we can talk on levels and tiers that are impossible to cover, but thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of RTV's Game Changers and helping women celebrate the true selves, their true work. And I do hope, and on behalf of Art Television and all our viewers out there, I wish you the very best, the best that you would be able to grow these changes, not by the millions, but I would say by trillions and more. I just hope you take everybody by a storm with all your wonderful work. Wishing you all the best and thanking you. That was Sanila. Ladies and gentlemen, we do hope you had a very exciting, let's say, very absorbing episode that was able to help you or your life or any of your blogs, whether you're a man or a woman. Of course, here this time around we are celebrating Women's Day, celebrating all women. We thank you for being a part of Art Television's Game Changers and wish you all a pleasant day.